Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Ben on Sports. And as you can see, or maybe you're assuming, you probably know the drill by now. It is week 15. This is the NASCAR weekly preview episode. I give some predictions, give some takes, and preview the upcoming week. This week, coming off the Crown Jewel race in Charlotte, NASCAR is moving to Nashville for the fifth race since they returned racing there, the fourth of which is in the next gen car. Without further ado, let's get into it. Number one storyline going into Nashville. How about the Melon Man? Last week we talked about how the Coca-Cola 600 either frequently gets people their first wins or frequently ends very long winless streaks. And it did the same for Ross Chastain, the Melon Man, on Sunday, getting his first win of the season, locking into the playoffs, and there might not be a hotter driver in NASCAR right now than the Melon Man, Ross Chastain. Can he keep his momentum going at a Nashville track that he's won at before? But yes, very good for Ross Chastain. You know, it's felt like he's been outperforming the speed, but he was the fastest car in practice, started last. But if you're ever going to start in last and have enough time to make it up to first, the longest race of the year is certainly the time to do it. And Ross Chastain made it all the way back up to first place in a backup car to win the Charlotte Coca-Cola 600, one of NASCAR's 4 Crown Jewel events. Second thing, I don't know what was better, Ross Chastain's drive to first or Amazon Prime's coverage. After years of Fox and NBC, and I know the general consensus is NBC has been better, but I think Prime just blew both out of the water. Excellent race coverage. The booth has chemistry, the 3-man booth. I loved that the pit road reporters were moving up and down pit row constantly. We actually, at the beginning of the race, got an entire lineup, the entire field. They went through the entire field, added bits and pieces about every couple of rows. Hour pre-race, hour and a half post-race. There's just everything about this coverage was good to me. And in the rare occasion they did miss something, they always found a way to go back and talk about it and show it. Just like that Tyler Reddick massive bobble where Reddick almost wrecked right in front of the race leader at the time, William Byron, that helped Ross Chastain chase him down. And this all leads to one question about things I'm seeing in the media this week. Is Fox salty? Because there's been a lot of comments made by both broadcasters of Fox and some higher ups at Fox Sports, and they're over there talking about, oh, well, that much pre-race, post-race coverage is not realistic, and in some ways it is, because Fox is, cable television. They have windows they have to be done by. Prime doesn't, right? They can go as long as they want because they're on their own streaming channel, but it certainly left some things to be desired, and they're talking about side-by-side commercials aren't doable, but Amazon figured out. I don't know. I think Fox is very salty that their broadcast for years has been to an extent crucified and shamed, and then Amazon's first race, Prime's first race, everybody is absolutely in love with it. Maybe Prime needs more than 5 races, and to those of you that might be unhappy about that, yeah, maybe the viewership is a couple 100,000 down, but for a first race on Prime, that's still pretty good. And the more important thing that NASCAR cares about, every single metric for young viewers went way up with the first episode of Prime. And I think that's going to continue just like it did for Thursday Night Football. When Thursday Night Football made the jump a couple years ago, I think NASCAR's looking for the same thing. We could, I know the contract is locked in for 7 years, but maybe Prime can find a way to buy out more races before the end of that contract. But yes, to answer the question, I think Fox is a little bit salty and unhappy. Who's the next person to win their first race of the season? I got 3 picks for you guys. Chase Elliott, Ryan Blaney, right? Everybody assumes those 2 guys are championship contenders. Blaney's had the speed to do it. Elliott I think it's like been in the top 20 every week this season. Elliott is bringing consistent speed. It just feels like a matter of time. He's with NASCAR's fastest team. Blaney's with one of NASCAR's fastest teams in Penske, and arguably should have won races this year, but it feels like he is DNFing a lot of races where he has speed and has the ability. And then another driver from one of NASCAR's fastest teams, Chase Briscoe, back-to-back top fives. It looks like that 19 team might be starting to figure it out. And I think if you're going to be talking about the next driver that needs to win, that you're maybe expecting to win that hasn't won, it's probably coming from Chase Elliott, Chase Briscoe, or Ryan Blaney. And then into that, I was talking about Blaney with DNFs. Bad luck and mistakes were some of the themes of the day. I think Kyle Larson, right, made bad luck and mistakes, not just in NASCAR. Denny Hamlin, right, obviously felt like he had a chance to win the race, and then they had to make an extra pit stop because they had a fueling error on what was supposed to be the last pit stop. Bad luck, right? Ryan Blaney gets wrecked out after Chase Briscoe and Daniel Suarez make contact. I think that's a racing incident. I see people try and blame on everything. Look, I think Briscoe gave him room. I think Daniel Suarez came up the track a little bit, but I don't think it was anything egregious. I just think racing three wide coming off the corner is not always an easy thing to do, and contact happens. Also, in speaking of Chase Briscoe mistakes, I mean, you can't lose a tire on pit road when you're in the top five and you're the pole winner. You know, that you could argue. I mean, Chase Briscoe, halfway through lap one, gets a penalty that sends him from third to the back of the pack, and he still ended up racing back to third, but he lost out on stage points in stage 1 and 2 and got some in stage 3, but arguably should have been higher up. So even Chase Briscoe, you know, he ended up with a good finish. But when your pit crew is making mistakes, it's hard to get stage points, something that James Small said coming into this race. They need to start picking up one. And then another person, Tyler Reddick, obviously was in the top 5 all day, got stage points in the top 5 all day, and couldn't finish there after a speeding penalty. So there was plenty of mistakes last Sunday. Who knows if this race ends up any different? Ross Chastain was the fastest in practice. It certainly looked like Ross Chastain had speed. You can't drive up through the pack without it. But I digress. Lots of bad luck, lots of mistakes, and that's kind of been the theme of the year for some teams. Does this race mean Trackhouse is back? I think most notably it wasn't just Chastain. Shane Van Gisbergen quietly getting a top 20 finish, getting a solid finish on an oval track nonetheless, a non-drafting oval track. Maybe that team's starting to figure it out. You know Shane Van Gisbergen's going to be a threat on the road courses. Maybe he's starting to figure it out on the oval, and maybe the team is starting to figure it out. It's hard to win a race without speed. Trackhouse clearly had it, plenty of it, in at least one car. Maybe Trackhouse is starting to figure out how to consistently be in contention again. As always, I have history for you guys, history in the next gen at Nashville. It's only been 3 races. Normally this race is held the last weekend in June. This year it's the first weekend, but I still think it's going to be hot and humid like normal. And your race winners in the next gen: Chase Elliott in 2022, Ross Chastain in 2023, and Joey Logano in 2024. How about that for a list of good drivers? Maybe Chase Elliott can find a way to repeat that, but more on that later. Your best average finish: Kyle Larson at 5.7 in 3 races, has an average finish of 5.7. It's a pretty good mark. And what's funny is that doesn't even include the first race at Nashville. Remember, this is only the 5th consecutive year racing at Nashville. So 2021 was the first year they came to Nashville. And you'll see Kyle Larson hasn't won in the next gen. The first race here, the last year of the last gen car, Larson dominated on his way to winning the race. So, maybe Larson has one in him this week. Has a lot of great finishes here. Denny Hamlin has led the most laps on this track in the next gen car, and he's sitting there with the second best average finish of 7. Chase Elliott, 7.7. He's been very good at this track in the next gen and also has a win. Joey Logano, another winner, with the 4th best average at 9.7. And then Bubba Wallace, 5th at 11.3. Again, I have an asterisk here. The 5 drivers I included are the 5 drivers that have started all 3 races in their average finish. There's some guys who I will mention that have not started all 3 races, but would be in the top 5 otherwise. Kurt Busch and Zane Smith both have second place finishes, but they've only started 1 race there. Daniel Hemrick has a 9th place finish, only started 1 race there. And then Ryan Preece has started 2 races there, an average finish of 10, including a top 5 finish last year at Nashville with Stewart-Haas Racing, which is a feat in its own, especially with how Stewart-Haas Racing was through the summer last year. Most top 5s in 3 races. There's 3 drivers tied at 2. Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott, and Larson. When you look at the winners list and you think about driver talent, no surprise, those are the top 3 guys with the most top 5s. And then there are 6 drivers tied in second or fourth, however you want to look at it, with 1 top 5. Chris Buescher, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, Ryan Preece, Joey Logano, and Denny Hamlin. Most top 10s. The only driver who has finished in the top 10 all 3 times at Nashville. Who would have thought it's the guy with the best average finish position? And Kyle Larson, he has 3. Then there's 6 drivers tied at 2. Christopher Bell, Denny Hamlin, Joey Logano, Chase Elliott, and Ross Chastain. Moving on to my favorites to win at Nashville. Team rankings. What a shocker. Hendrick 1, Joe Gibbs 2, Team Penske 3. That's pretty much every single track, just about. Maybe it changes for road courses, super speedways, but pretty much every track you can count on those being the 1, 2, and 3 teams. Those are the 3 dominant teams in NASCAR. I'm leaving 23XI at 4th because Reddick has some success here. Bubba Wallace doesn't mind this track. Maybe one of those guys finally gets it turned around this week, but 23XI is in danger of falling down the list. And then Trackhouse, coming off of a great weekend last weekend, has one of the hottest drivers in NASCAR, probably the hottest driver in NASCAR, and that driver has won here. Trackhouse has an argument for being 4th on this list. My driver favorites, my top 10 favorites to win this week from driver perspective. Kyle Larson hasn't won here in Next Gen yet. Probably frustrated after a rough weekend last weekend. He's going to be looking to rebound. And what better place to do it than Nashville? Hendrick is going to be fast. I look for Kyle Larson to win this race this week. Denny Hamlin has not yet won at Nashville, but he has led the most laps in the Next Gen. I'm going to put him at second. Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin, probably your 2 most consistent commodities in NASCAR right now. There's a reason why I always have him near the top of this list. Chase Elliott, consistently putting together solid finishes. That's why he's top 5 in points. Hasn't had the top end speed at most tracks. Hasn't had race winning speed. This week, though, he knows how to win here. Maybe this is finally the week he gets that win because it feels like a matter of if not win with Chase Elliott. Ross Chastain, last week, probably would have been right near the bottom at 9 or 10. This week, he's in the top 5. Trackhouse finally won a race. Ross Chastain is supernova hot with how many great finishes he's stacking. Ross Chastain might be back. William Byron, again, has a solid performance at Nashville. Usually is pretty good at this style course. Hendrick's never going to have only one car that's good. Usually they're going to have 2 or 3. William Byron is also first in the points for a reason. I look for William Byron to have a pretty solid day, coming off a week where he feels like he probably should have won at Charlotte. Christopher Bell has had a good run here in the past. Christopher Bell is top 3 in points, more specifically 3rd in points, still leading with most total wins this year. And he's been arguably the 2nd most consistent driver, 3rd most consistent driver. Christopher Bell is always a threat to win. This week is no different. Ryan Blaney, his teammate, won this race last year in Joey Logano. Ryan Blaney has had the most consistent speed with Team Penske. Like I said, Team Penske's won at Nashville before. Ryan Blaney always has speed. Eventually, his bad luck is going to turn around. I look for Ryan Blaney to be a factor this week. And then number 8, his teammate that won this race last year, Joey Logano. Nobody at Team Penske had a good week at Charlotte. It looked like Blaney could have done it, and then he wrecked out. Joey Logano was finished in 17th as the last car on the lead lap, but he's still been, before that, has been one of the hottest drivers in NASCAR. Maybe he cooled off a little bit, but anytime Logano has familiarity at a racetrack, especially a track that he's won at before, he's a threat to do it again. Tyler Reddick, maybe not as fast as he was last year. Didn't get the finish that he deserved last week after that speeding penalty, but ran in the top 5 virtually all day, a whole bunch of points. He's still top 8 in season points. He's still Tyler Reddick. 23XI is going to figure it out eventually too. And when they do, Tyler Reddick could be there. And Kyle Busch has had a good run here before. It just feels like it's getting to the point where RCR needs to do or die. And I think Kyle Busch can show up in those scenarios. He's had a good run here before. I think he's kind of flashed some speed, even if he's not getting the finishes he deserves. I think Kyle Busch could be a surprise to have a good finish this weekend. And now let's get into the power rankings. I know that's everybody's favorite segment, so let's get into the power rankings. Number 1, William Byron. Again, great race last week. He's first in points. Even though he's only won one race, getting a lot of stage points. Finished second. Won and led the most laps, I believe. Had some great racing with Denny Hamlin until Denny Hamlin had those issues on that last green flag run. But William Byron eventually is going to get another race win, especially if he keeps dominating races. That team seems to have speed at every type of track every single week. It's hard to have anybody but Byron number 1 after what transpired last week. Christopher Bell with another solid day, picking up solid points. And he's starting to stack them back to back. And in fact, because the guy at number 3 fell, or had a rough week, it allowed Bell to move up. Kyle Larson is at 3. I have had him at 1, had a rough week. When you're at the top and you have a rough week, it's usually hard to stay there. Larson is still second in points. He did lose a lot of ground to William Byron, but there's still plenty of time left to reel him back in. Again, I think a pissed off Kyle Larson could be a very good thing for the 5 team this week, and I think that they very well could end up in victory lane. But he slides down 2 spots to number 3 this week. Denny Hamlin, number 4. I'm kind of giving him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Maybe didn't have the finish that he maybe should have. But he collected a lot of points and was one of the 2 fastest cars pretty much all day, especially once he got to the front. And sometimes showing that you have speed and can race up top, even if you have some bad luck or make a mistake, it's just as important to me as somebody who maybe doesn't make a mistake and finishes around the same spot. But Denny Hamlin in 4th. And then Ross Chastain vaulting all the way into the top 5. He's stacking together top 5s, and he finally got the win. I just think Ross Chastain is super hot right now and might make a charge up the point standings. He might have a couple more races. Sometimes guys get hot and races come in bunches. Ross Chastain could be that guy. Chase Elliott, again, he's kind of been in this 4, 5, 6 range all season. He's not having the super, super low lows, but he's also not having super high highs and winning races. Maybe that changed this week. A win could catapult him into the top 3 or 4. Again, he's great on points. He's top 5 on points. Just hasn't won a race yet. Tyler Reddick went down to 8 last week. I moved him to 7 above Joey Logano this week. Because not only did he have a better week, but he showed top 5 speed for the entirety of a race, something he hasn't done a lot recently. And I think when Tyler Reddick and 23XI are performing the way they should, they are consistently a top 5 team, a championship contender. Maybe they can build on some of the speed they found at Charlotte and find a way to start building momentum towards the playoffs. Joey Logano at 8, again, not a week to write home about. Didn't finish outside the top 20. Still found a way to get a top 20, which will help a little bit with points. But again, not a great week. Was never really in contention to win this race. Chase Briscoe moving up a spot. He is not top 10 in points, but I have him top 10 on my power rankings because he now has back-to-back top 5 finishes since early 2023. Good sign for Briscoe and the 19 team. They still need stage points. If the stage points would match their finishing position, they probably would be top 10 in points. I believe Briscoe is tied for second or tied for third in top 5 finishes this year. So Briscoe definitely starting to heat up again. Back-to-back top 5s. Won the pole this week. Got the penalty, raced back up through the field, which was probably the second most impressive thing that happened this week behind Ross Chastain, because Briscoe had to go to the back 2 after that penalty and still found a way to get a top 5 finish. So Chase Briscoe finding speed with that 19 team, putting him into 9th. Passing somebody who's ahead of him in points in Ryan Blaney. Blaney looked like he had some speed, contact with Chase Briscoe, funnily enough. But I don't know if he had race winning speed, top 5 speed. I think he had top 10 speed. Maybe the adjustments were to be had that could have changed. Blaney is still somehow top 8 in points despite a 5 DNFs, which I believe is tied for the most in the Cup Series this year. So to be that good on points with that many DNFs says a lot about Ryan Blaney and how much speed how much speed they have and how many stage points they're getting. But again, not a great finish and starting to kind of lose points to the top guys. Alex Bowman, I was talking about his teammate, Chase Elliott. Not a lot of high highs, not a lot of low lows. That's all Alex Bowman knows. There is no middle ground for Alex Bowman. It feels like literally every single race this year has been a top 10 for him, or it's been an outside of the top 25, as he's in the high 20s and low 30s, and this was no exception. He was never in the picture in this race, has had a bad finish. Alex Bowman has had a couple in a row now. But Alex Bowman has also shown this season when he gets hot, he can rattle off a whole bunch of stage points, get multiple top 5s in a row, and be in contention to win races. Alex Bowman's going to need to find that quick, I think. You don't want to let these bad weeks stack up, and then next thing you know, you look at the cut line and you're only 15 points above it with 2 weeks left. Alex Bowman isn't quite there yet, but 2 or 3 more bad weeks could have him there. And this is Nashville's not a track historically where Alex Bowman performs well. Maybe that changes this week. Bubba Wallace is one of the better drivers at Nashville, but he's on a rough patch. He's been outside the top 30 now, I believe, 2 or 3 weeks in a row. After having such a great start to the season, I feel like they've kind of lost a lot of that start and are now getting close to the cut line where they do not want to be. They got passed by another Toyota and Chase Briscoe in points, so now they are only, I think, 2 or 3 spots above that playoff cut line. Bubba Wallace, man, they need to find some momentum and need to find it quick. He has the 5th best average finish at Nashville among the drivers who have started all 3 races there, if you remember. Maybe this is the week they start going in the right direction. Ryan Preece with an okay week this week. He's up to 13 purely because he's just better than some of the guys that he passed. Had a better week. He's in the playoffs. He's the only RFK driver in the playoffs if they were to start today. What does that say? Again, Ryan Preece had a top 5 finish in a Ford team that isn't as fast as RFK last year. Maybe Ryan Preece can parlay some of that success this year and be in contention to win. It does feel like Ryan Preece has a chance to win more races and has shown a little more of his ability and skill this year than in previous years with Stewart-Haas. Ricky Stenhouse with another good drive. And ladies and gentlemen, would you believe it if I told you Ricky Stenhouse is 13th in points with Hayek Motorsports? That is absolutely incredible. I'm going to give him one of these. A round of applause, because Ricky Stenhouse, the man affectionately known as Ricky Spinhouse, name given to him by Kyle Busch. Everybody knows his super speedway tendencies where he's either going to be in the front or he's going to wreck, right? And he's had some good races here and there, but Ricky Stenhouse is putting together the best season of his career, has the best average finishing position of his career, and is currently in the playoffs on points, not by winning a race. Had another solid week this week at Charlotte. Can he keep this run up? Or can he even win a race? Because my concern, if you're Ricky Stenhouse, yes, you're in the playoffs on points right now, but there's a lot of guys behind you that maybe have an opportunity to win a race and push you back a couple spots, and before you know it, you're on the outside looking in. But right now, this has been a phenomenal year by Ricky Stenhouse that I don't think a lot of people saw coming. Maybe this new era of Hayek Motorsports, maybe that team's going to keep getting better. And maybe Ryan Preece, or not Ryan Preece, maybe Ricky Stenhouse can prove maybe he deserves a faster ride. Another guy that deserves a big old one of these, right? AJ Allmendinger having a career resurgence. Another great race for him. Had top 10 speed all day, collected some great stage points, a lot of them. Another guy that's sitting around that playoff cut line that has a legitimate chance to make the playoffs on points for a Kaulig racing team that nobody would have expected to be in that situation coming into this year. A great performance in the 600. And Allmendinger is one of those guys that, he's pretty darn good on road courses. Maybe Allmendinger finds victory lane at one of them. But he's right in the thick of things with points. And sometimes that's all you need because other people will take care of themselves in a sense. If playoffs were to start today, he would be out, but just barely. He's fighting with the two RFK cars. And I guess you could say Ricky Stenhouse. They're all, I think, about 23 points separating 4 cars right now. Only 2 of them would be getting in. So definitely a close race, but a great week by AJ Allmendinger. Can he and Kaulig Racing continue this stretch and continue this momentum? Austin Cindric, he's not on the playoff cut line. In fact, he's won a race. But not a great week from Cindric, just like it wasn't a great week from anybody on Penske. Good thing Cindric doesn't have to point his way in because it'd be a little bit rough for him. Couple of rough weeks in a row for Cindric. They need to turn it around. Maybe it happens at Nashville. I don't know if I believe it, but I still want to see Austin Cindric put together more complete seasons, more complete races on tracks that are not road courses and super speedways. Everybody knows he can race on those, and he's very good on those. But those make up maybe a third of the NASCAR schedule combined. What can he do on the other 2/3? And so far, that's what has me worried about Cindric. Josh Berry, another guy who, man, he had a good start to the season, but the longer it goes, the more it's looking like Josh Berry could be a one round and done guy in the playoffs. He's really struggling after having that great start and winning his first career race. There's still time left for him to get it going. He started on the front row last year at Nashville. Didn't get the result maybe he desired, but maybe he can find some of that speed. Maybe that Penske Association will get him a good finish and get him a solid car this week. Chris Buescher, thankfully, that penalty, not nearly as bad as it once was, and it puts him from like 24th on points to 17th, where he's the first guy out of the playoffs, but he's right there, and he's probably better than some of the guys in front of him. Chris Buescher is still somebody that can win a race. I think RFK has lacked some of the speed they've had in previous seasons, but not all of it. It would not surprise me at all to see Chris Buescher end up in the playoffs or victory lane. And then 2 guys in Spire Motorsports that have had phenomenal weeks. Hocevarge was almost really good until he had some bad luck with a blown engine. But Hocevar and McDowell both having great finishes, McDowell having a great finish. Both of those guys had great speed, got some good points, and they're both firmly in the playoff contention for a Spire team that nobody ever thought that would be the case. Look out for them down the stretch. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow me on X. Those are the things you can do to help out the channel. It's the most helpful to me. It's what every creator wants, right? Like, comment, subscribe. And in the comments, let me know who you think might win this week. Let me know your hot takes. Let me know your opinions, or even respond to something I said if it makes you happy or sad. Thank you for taking time out of your days, weeks, and lives for listening. And hey, go find a couch this weekend and watch some sports. Stanley Cup finals are coming on soon. Waiting on the Eastern Conference finals, and then the NBA finals will be here. NCAA college baseball regionals start off on Friday, the day this episode comes out. Plenty of sports to get yourself involved in. And then obviously go watch NASCAR on Prime Video in Nashville. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. Peace out.